Hello, Alan Heaton, Spirit Calling. Today I'd like to talk about the transformation that's taking place on this planet at the moment. And that's why I've called this YouTube site Spirit Calling, because Spirit is calling us to transform at this moment. There's a great energy shift taking place. And perhaps you know this already, and perhaps you perceive it maybe as taking place. You see more and more protests taking place against governments because of lockdown restrictions and so on. You see waves of truth coming out about corruption and things going on behind the scenes which have previously been hidden. And you think, well, maybe this is building up to something. In my case, it's pushed me, this energy shift has pushed me into going full steam ahead with my spiritual work. Whereas before I was sort of getting into it more and more slowly. Now I've been involved in energy work really now for about 15 years. I first did Reiki in 2004. When I was at the Arthur Findlay College last time in November 2019 for a trance healing course, at the end of the week, we all got a little bit of feedback. Just a very brief bit of feedback from the teacher. And he said to me, Spirit wants you to be a healer, to be a teacher, to be a trance speaker and an inspirational speaker. So this is, if you like, more of an inspirational speech. It's time to look in the mirror, decide who you are and where you belong, and what your role in all of this is. Now you may of course need some time to work things out. This doesn't mean, of course, that you should be working in the spiritual field, not necessarily at all. Your passion might be accounting or electronics or something else. But whatever it is that grabs you, whatever your passion is, whatever you think your role in all of this is, that's where Spirit wants you to move to at this time. And also to be very aware that there are big changes happening. Gradually you can see the breakdown of trust in all of these establishment structures. Governments, of course, they are completely losing trust. We've seen just recently, for example, in Britain, how they have been lecturing the people to stay at home, be safe, keep your distance, wear your mask and all this stuff. And this is a rule that is clearly for the masses, but not for them. We saw the G7 leaders and the leader of the EU meet in Cornwall. And again, they ignored all the rules and regulations when they were meeting each other, and they were photographed on the beach and elsewhere, ignoring them. But when they did their photo ops, they put their masks on and stood 1.5 meters away from each other. We've seen UEFA, the football organisation, threaten the FA in London and Wembley Stadium, and particularly the English government. Actually, it was the government they threatened, because at the moment, if you go from most countries, depending what country it is, to Britain, to the UK, you have to go into quarantine for some days. And the final of the European Championship is due to be held at Wembley in London. And UEFA wants about 3,000, nearly 3,000 various various officials and dignitaries to attend. And they don't want to go to quarantine, no. And so they said, if you don't let us in, we'll move the final somewhere else. And so the government gave way and said, okay, we'll let you in without any quarantine. So clearly they are not affected by any perceived alleged virus. It's only the rest of us who are affected by it. This is, of course, not going unnoticed by people who are getting angrier and angrier about the rules and regulations preventing them from living a routine life, and in many cases from going to work or opening their business up. Whilst all these high and mighty dignitaries do what the hell they like. This is part of the change and transformations taking place. Trust in government is going, and it's going to completely go. And not just in government, but in supranational institutions, the EU, the World Health Organization, the CDC, the NIH in America, the RKI in Germany, and various other organizations, the United Nations. We're going to see trust in all of these kinds of organizations go right down. Because there is this huge energy shift. People are waking up. Every time we see something happen, some more people wake up and start to question things. And once people are awake and realize that something very irregular is going on, that they're being lied to, that they're being taken the mickey out of, they get angry in some cases, and in other cases they want to know more, and they start looking around and asking more questions and trying to work out what is really happening. And they don't go back to sleep again. Once you're awake, and you don't go back to sleep. You might not like what you find out because for decades you may have had faith in the system. Yesterday there was a very big freedom march in London, hundreds of thousands of people again, the third one in about 7 weeks. And generally speaking, the mainstream media still doesn't report it very much. BBC did not report the previous two at all, even though one of the protest marches went right past their building. This time they've mentioned it very, very briefly, and tried to make out it was only a small protest and just one of several others. Today there is a protest in front of the BBC. The BBC is losing credibility at a rate of knots. It is not reporting even what is happening right in front of its building. They do, of course, get their orders from the government. They're also financed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, as are many other entities, the World Health Organization, the CDC, Imperial College London, the London Guardian also gets money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they too do not truthfully report what is happening. In fact, the mainstream media in general has been abysmal for the last 15 months. And if you really want to find out what's happening, you have to go elsewhere, to independent sources, independent scientists, independent doctors, independent researchers, who are simply trying to either in the case of the scientists and doctors, the truth as they believe it to be, and the researchers, of course, the truth as they find it to be. In the long run, there's a very good chance that we will come out of this with a better world. But it's definitely not a guarantee. There are some people in the spiritual field who say we should just simply sit at home and meditate in large groups, on the internet, for example, online, or all at the same time, tune in to the same webinar or whatever, and send out energy to help the energy to continue to rise. Now, this is definitely very useful and very helpful, but is this enough? Peaceful protesting, and it should be peaceful, of course, has a big role to play. A lot of people understand what is going on or have the feeling that something is wrong, but they are afraid of speaking. A lot of people are afraid of losing their jobs. Scientists, doctors, nurses, teachers, all kinds of people are in a state of fear. What kind of world is this when so many people are afraid of saying what they feel, what they think? They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of losing their friends. They're afraid of losing their families, their neighbours. They're afraid of being boycotted by their colleagues. So the more people who are prepared to speak out, even if it's just a little bit, asking a few questions and saying things, did you know this? Dr. So-and-so says this. Dr. So-and-so over there says that. This all adds to the great, and it helps to waken people up, to make them think about what they're being told from the sources that they've always trusted, and helps them to start to ask questions and maybe think that what they're being told is not true. What we shouldn't do is start accusing everybody and being aggressive, because that doesn't work. It merely makes the gap that exists bigger and divides people. And the powers that be have always used divide and rule to control people, and they're using it again now by trying to divide the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, by trying to make out that the unvaccinated are preventing so-called freedom from coming back, or helping the virus to continue to make people ill, which is complete and utter nonsense. One of the basic principles of virology, and I know a reasonable amount about the basics of germ theory-based virology, because I've done various courses in it, or related subjects over the years. One of the basics is, if you don't have any symptoms, you're not ill. This idea that there are all these asymptomatic people going around spreading the virus everywhere is complete and utter rubbish. The chances of anyone who is asymptomatic infecting somebody else is very, very, very small. Tiny. And it creates an atmosphere of fear, of course. This whole thing is based on fear. It's not based on science. Great atmosphere of fear is being created. Fear is a very powerful emotion and a very powerful psychological weapon. And it's up to us, those who realise what is happening and are looking at it also from a spiritual point of view, to try and get people not to be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of. The possibility of getting ill is always there, and it's up to us to make sure that we have a robust immune system through our lifestyle. Various things contribute to that, to vastly reduce the possibilities. It's been a bit of a disappointment to me that I've seen quite a lot of people in the spiritual field who have bought right into this, who actually believe everything they're being told. And so I hope very much that they start to wake up out of this, the trance that they're in, the wrong kind of trance. We're here at this time to make a big shift forward in consciousness and to create a better world. Many of the old structures are going to come tumbling down. And they have to, so that we can create something else. You can't change the world from the top down. The people at the top have too much power. And they've got the armies. They've got the weapons. It has to come from a much lower level. When you take away the foundations of the structure, it collapses. And that's what's going to happen. It's already happening. It could happen very quickly. It depends on us. And Spirit is calling us to go down this path of change and transformation, to embrace it, to not be afraid, to not be in this fear condition. So what I want to leave you with today is, ask yourself, what is your role in all of this? What is your role, generally speaking? What is it that you want to be? Where do you want to be? What kind of people do you want around you? Think about it. You don't need to make a decision in 5 minutes. Take your time. Do you have these people around you at the moment? What kind of world would you like to live in? A world of complete control from centralized power bases? Or a more decentralized, freedom-oriented world? A world based on fear, or a world based on love? That's basically what it comes down to. We live in a world based on fear or love. There's not much in between. And that is what I would like to leave with you today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.